In a small house at the edge of a bustling town, there lived a young woman named Ella. Her heart was as warm as the summer sun, and her spirit as gentle as a spring breeze. But her life was far from sunny. After her beloved father passed away, Ella was left in the care of her stepmother, a woman whose heart was as cold and hard as a winter stone, and her two stepsisters, whose envy made them cruel and demanding. From sunrise to sunset, Ella was their servant. She scrubbed floors until her knees were sore, cooked meals that were devoured without a word of thanks, and mended dresses she would never get to wear. They called her Cinderella because she often had to sleep by the hearth, and her face would be smudged with cinders. Through it all the taunts, the endless chores, the loneliness that crept in like a shadow Ella held onto a tiny flicker of hope. She would often talk to the little mice who scurried in the walls and the birds who sang outside her window, sharing with them her dreams of a life where she was loved and seen for who she truly was. She dreamed of kindness, of a day when her own warmth would be met with warmth in return. One crisp morning, the town buzzed with excitement. A royal decree was read aloud in the square. The king was hosting a grand ball for his son, the prince, and every eligible maiden in the kingdom was invited. The prince was to choose a bride, and the palace would be opened for 3 nights of celebration. Back at the little house, the stepsisters Anastasia and Drizella were in a frenzy of delight. A royal ball, the prince will surely fall in love with me, screeched Anastasia. No, me, I have the finest dresses, Drizella retorted. Their excitement was a sharp contrast to Ella's quiet longing. She imagined the music, the dancing, the elegant gowns, and a small, hopeful smile touched her lips. Gathering her courage, she approached her stepmother. "Stepmother," she began softly, "may I also attend the ball?" The decree said every maiden is invited. The stepmother and her daughters burst into laughter. "You in your rags and covered in ashes." The stepmother sneered. "Don't be ridiculous. Besides, you have chores to do. The floors need scrubbing, and our gowns need mending." Her stepsisters chimed in, "You'd be an embarrassment. Stay where you belong, in the cinders." With their cruel words ringing in her ears, Ella watched them prepare. She helped them get ready, lacing their corsets and styling their hair, her own heart heavy as a stone. When the carriage finally departed, leaving her alone in the quiet, empty house, the last of her composure crumbled. She ran into the garden, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The world felt cold and unjust. "It's just not fair," she whispered to the moon, her tears watering the roses her own mother had planted long ago. "All I wanted was one night." Just as despair threatened to swallow her whole, a soft, shimmering light began to glow nearby. It swirled and danced like 1,000 fireflies, gathering into the form of a kindly silver-haired woman with eyes that twinkled like the stars themselves. Now, child, what's all this crying about?" she asked in a voice that sounded like tiny chiming bells. "There's no time for tears when there's a ball to attend." Ella stared, her tears forgotten. Who are you?" "I am your fairy godmother, my dear," she said with a warm smile. "And I believe I heard someone wishing to go to a ball." With a flick of her shimmering wand, the magic began. She tapped a plump pumpkin in the garden, and with a flash of light, it swelled and transformed into a magnificent, gleaming carriage. The little mice Ella had befriended scurried out, and with another tap, they became 4 proud white horses, while the old farm horse became a grand coachman. But the real magic was for Ella herself. Her fairy godmother waved her wand over Ella's worn, patched dress. Instantly, threads of starlight wove themselves around her, transforming her rags into a breathtaking ball gown of sparkling silver and blue, shimmering as if made from moonlight itself. And on her feet, where her worn-out shoes had been, appeared a pair of delicate, exquisite slippers, crafted from pure, shining glass. "Oh, they're beautiful," Ella gasped, twirling in wonder. "Thank you, thank you." The fairy godmother beamed. "Now, off you go, my child. Enjoy the ball. But there is one very important rule. You must leave before the clock strikes midnight. At the final stroke of 12, the magic will end, and everything will turn back to what it was." Ella nodded, her heart soaring with joy. "I promise I will remember." With a final grateful smile, she stepped into the carriage, which whisked her away toward the palace and the night that would change her life forever. The moment Ella stepped into the grand ballroom, a hush fell over the entire court. Heads turned, and whispers rippled through the crowd. Who was this mysterious princess whose gown shimmered like the night sky and whose grace was unmatched? Even her own stepsisters didn't recognize her, merely staring in jealous awe. The prince, who had been politely greeting guests with a weary expression, stopped mid-sentence. His eyes found Ella's across the room, and in that instant, it felt as though the entire world had faded away, leaving only the two of them. He walked directly to her, bowing deeply. "May I have this dance?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. When Ella placed her hand in his, a spark seemed to pass between them. As they danced, it was as if they were floating. They spoke of everything and nothing, of stars and dreams, of kindness and hope. The prince was captivated not just by her beauty, but by the genuine warmth in her eyes and the gentle spirit he sensed within her. He felt as if he had known her his entire life. For Ella, it was a dream come true. For the first time, she wasn't Cinderella, the servant girl. She was simply Ella, and she was seen. She was cherished. The hours flew by like minutes. They danced every dance, and the prince never left her side. But as they shared a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the royal gardens, the distant sound of the clock tower began to chime. Bong, dot, 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 bong. It was nearing midnight. A jolt of panic went through Ella. "Oh, I must go," she exclaimed, pulling away. "But why?" "The night is still young," the prince pleaded, confused by her sudden departure. "I'm sorry, I must," she said, her heart aching. She turned and ran, her sparkling gown flowing behind her. The prince called after her, but she didn't stop. She flew down the grand marble staircase, her mind racing. In her haste, one of her delicate glass slippers slipped off her foot and was left behind on the steps. She didn't dare turn back. As she reached the palace gates, the final stroke of midnight echoed through the night. The magic vanished in a flash, her beautiful carriage turning back into a pumpkin and her gown into rags. Panting, she made her way home, clutching the one remaining glass slipper as proof that it hadn't all been a dream. The next morning, the kingdom was abuzz with news of the mysterious princess. The prince was inconsolable. He had fallen deeply in love, but didn't even know her name. All he had was the single, perfect glass slipper she had left behind. He made a royal proclamation. He would marry the maiden whose foot the slipper fit. The royal guard, led by the Grand Duke, travelled from house to house, trying the slipper on every woman in the land. When they finally arrived at Ella's home, the stepsisters were beside themselves with excitement. Anastasia tried first, cramming and squeezing her foot, but it was no use. Drizella shoved her aside and tried as well, wincing in pain as she attempted to force the slipper on. It was hopelessly too small. "Is there no other maiden in this house?" the Grand Duke asked, his face grim with disappointment. The stepmother shook her head quickly. "No, no one else. Only my 2 daughters." But at that moment, Ella appeared at the top of the stairs, her face calm and hopeful. The stepmother tried to block her. "Pay her no mind. She is but a servant girl." The prince, who had insisted on accompanying the search, saw her and his heart skipped a beat. Though she was dressed in rags, her eyes were the same gentle, kind eyes he remembered. "Let her try," he commanded, his voice firm. Ella walked down and sat on the chair. The royal attendant knelt, and without any effort at all, the glass slipper slid perfectly onto her foot. It was a perfect fit. The stepsisters and stepmother gasped in shock and horror. To confirm it all, Ella reached into her pocket and pulled out the other glass slipper, the matching pair. In that moment, everyone knew. The prince's face lit up with joyous recognition. "It's you," he whispered, taking her hand. He saw not the rags she wore, but the kind and beautiful soul he had fallen in love with. Ella was taken to the palace, where she was given beautiful clothes and treated with the honor she deserved. But as preparations for the royal wedding began, she made a surprising request. She asked that her stepmother and stepsisters be brought to the palace. Many expected she would seek revenge for their years of cruelty. But when they arrived, trembling with fear, Ella greeted them not with anger, but with compassion. "I forgive you," she said softly, her voice clear and strong. She understood that their cruelty came from their own unhappiness and jealousy. Her act of forgiveness was the greatest magic of all. Her stepmother and stepsisters, humbled and ashamed, finally understood the depth of her goodness. Ella's kindness triumphed over years of hardship. She married her prince, and as queen, she ruled with the same gentle heart and unwavering grace she had always possessed. And everyone in the kingdom came to know that their queen's heart shone even more brightly than her famous glass slippers. Thank you so much for joining me on this magical journey. If you enjoyed this retelling, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story. See you next time.